Welcome to Module 4, Software. In this module you will learn software risk management, software design and development, software maintenance, and software principles. Note that there will be a quiz at the end of this module. You must score at least an 80% to pass, and the quiz can be retaken as many times as needed. IEC 62304 provides guidance of the software lifecycle processes. Software follows an overall similar process to that of hardware medical devices, but there are key differences that we will discuss in this module. The figure to the right presents the software development activities and processes. So, as with hardware, we start off with customer needs that feed into software development activities. These activities include software development planning, leading to requirements analysis, architectural design, detail design, software unit implementation and verification, software integration and integration testing, software system testing, and then ultimately software release. And risk management happens throughout all of those activities. We also include software configuration management and software problem resolution. Before we dive into the different components of the figure that we just seen on the last slide, let's first get a better understanding of the different types of software. First, we have software as a medical device, or SAMD. SAMD is a standalone software that performs one or more medical purposes without being a part of a hardware device. Next, we have software in a medical device, or SIMD. SIMD is a software that is a part of a medical device or controls it. It is also referred to as firmware or embedded software. And lastly, we have software that is used in manufacturing or maintenance of a medical device, and this is pretty self-explanatory. This includes programmable logic controllers, or PLCs, or measuring and test equipment. A PLC is an industrial computer control system that continuously monitors the state of input devices and makes decisions based upon a custom program to control the state of the output device. Let's now review software risk management. Software risk management follows ISO 14971 just like other hardware devices. Software should have a hazard analysis and a software FMEA similar as done for hardware. Associated risk controls should also be documented in these documents. Additional risk type documents that are added for software, however, is the software safety classification and the software level of concern, or LOC. The software can be assigned one of the following safety classes: Class A, Class B, or Class C. With Class A, no injury or damage to health is possible. With Class B, no serious injury is possible. And with Class C, death or serious injury is possible. Justification into why a particular class was chosen should be documented in the risk management file. Risk controls should be implemented that are proportionate to the safety class of the software. The following flowchart helps determine which class a software should fall in by considering a few simple questions. By default, the software will start with Class C, which again is serious or death possible. We then consider, can this hazardous situation arise from the failure of the software? If no, then likely we can go ahead and classify it as Class A. If yes, we then need to consider the effectiveness of risk controls that measure external to the software. And then we need to consider, does failure of that software result in an unacceptable risk? If no, then perhaps we can go to Class A. If yes, however, then we need to also consider, what is the severity of injury possible? And if there's no serious injury possible, then perhaps we can classify as Class B. If serious injury is possible, again, then we classify as Class C. Software level of concern can fall into one of the three following levels: major, moderate, or minor. With major level of concern, a failure or latent flaw could directly or indirectly result in the death or serious injury of the patient or operator through incorrect or delayed information or through the action of a care provider. With moderate level of concern, a failure or latent design flaw could directly or indirectly result in a minor injury to the patient or operator through incorrect or delayed information or through the action of a care provider. And with minor level of concern, failures or latent design flaws are unlikely to cause any injury to the patient or operator. Let's now review software design and development. As with hardware, software also needs a development plan that should be updated as much as needed. The development plan needs to consist of the following information. First, the processes used in the development of the software system, and this is the same as hardware requirements and includes standards, tools, and methods. The development plan should also consist of the deliverables, including the documentation of the activities and tasks performed. This is the same as hardware requirements. The development plan also needs traceability between system requirements, software system test, and risk control measures implemented in the software. This is also similar to hardware requirements. This includes verification planning activities such as deliverables requiring verification, the required verification tasks of each lifecycle activity, milestones at which the deliverables are verified, and the acceptance criteria for verification of the deliverables. The traceability also includes system and software requirements analysis that has functional requirements, inputs such as user requirements and software design requirements, outputs, interfaces, cybersecurity, usability engineering, installation and acceptance, etc. And we'll talk about this a little bit more later in the module. Risk controls for these items should be proportionate to the safety classification. And if the software does not have associated hardware in a standalone, then system requirements are not needed. The development plan should also include software configuration and change management, including software of unknown provenance, also known as SOUP configuration items, as well as software used to support in development. The revisions of the SOUP need to be included in the developmental documents. The development plan lastly should include software problem resolution for handling problems detected in the software products, deliverables, and activities at each stage of the lifecycle. The software configuration management information shall include or reference the classes, types, categories, or lists of items to be controlled, the software configuration management activities and tasks, the organizations responsible for performing software configuration management and activities, their relationship with other organizations such as the software development or maintenance, when items are to be placed under configuration control, and when the problem resolution process should be utilized. When assessing user requirements, identified items are typically documented in a user requirement specification, or URS. These requirements then flow into a requirements analysis called Software Requirement Specification, or SRS. As mentioned earlier, the SRS typically includes functional and capability requirements, and this includes performance, physical characteristics, computing environments, compatibility with upgrades and/or SOUPs, etc. The SRS also includes software system with inputs and outputs such as data characteristics, ranges, limits, and defaults. It also includes interfaces between the software system and other systems if it has systems or if it does have hardware in it. It also includes alarms, warnings, operator messages, and other security requirements such as authentication, authorization, audit trail, etc. It also includes usability engineering requirements such as support for manual operations, human equipment interactions, constraints on personnel, areas needing concentrated attention, as well as associated user documents. The SRS also includes data and database requirements such as form, fit, and function, installation and acceptance requirements, and other additional requirements for maintenance and/or requirements from the regulators. The outputs of these can be directly used into implementation in coding and programming languages. SRS requirements are then transformed into software architecture. The software architecture describes the software's structure, identifies software items and units, includes any interfaces between software items and external components, as well as includes wireframes and other interfaces. A software item is any identifiable part of a computer program. A software unit is a software item that is not able to be subdivided into other items. All of these elements should be segregated as needed to allow for proper risk control. The software architecture, details of each unit or software items, the details of interfaces between the units and external components or other software units all make up the software detailed design. The software detailed design is typically documented in the Software Design Specification, or SDS. These items would all then need to be verified with their acceptance criteria documented. If the software can be divided into units, the associated unit and the integrated tests and their acceptance criteria all need to be documented. When changes are made during testing, repeat the tests, perform modified tests, or perform additional tests as appropriate to verify the effectiveness of the changes. Integration testing, also known as integration and testing, or INT, is a type of software testing in which the different units, modules, or components of a software application are tested as a combined entity. The different modules, however, may be coded by different programmers. The main aim of integration testing is to test the interfaces between the modules and expose any defects that may arise when the components are integrated and need to interact with each other. Code reviews should also be included in testing. Integration testing is conducted after unit testing. Unit testing is where the functional correctness of the smallest piece of code or unit is tested. Each unit can be logically isolated in the software, and the smaller the unit, the more granular insights unit testing can reveal. The main difference between unit testing and integration testing is that in unit testing, individual modules are tested. In integration testing, these modules are combined and tested as a single unit to check the functionality of the overall application. When software is ready to be released, the verification outcomes in any software unresolved anomalies should be documented. The version of the software and any associated soup also needs to be documented. A checklist that can be used for software release is included in this module. After software is developed, maintenance of the software becomes an important process. The figure to the right describes the maintenance activities and processes, and this is very similar to the figure that we've seen earlier, but now we have the loop that you can see in section 6.3 that just includes the modification implementation when any of these items need changes. A software maintenance plan should be created and should include information regarding receiving, documenting, evaluating, resolving, and tracking feedback arising after release. Criteria for determining whether feedback is considered a problem should also be documented. The risk management process should be utilized in establishing this criterion. Each problem report shall be evaluated to determine how it affects the safety of released software. Additionally, procedures to evaluate and implement upgrades, bug fixes, patches, and obsolescence need to be in place. Let's conclude this module with some important software principles to keep in mind. So the software validation process cannot be completed without an established SRS. Again, SRS is the Software Requirements Specification. Software quality assurance should focus more so on preventing the introduction of defects into the software development process as opposed to reacting to them afterwards. Software classified as validated should be based on evidence collected from planned efforts conducted throughout the software lifecycle. The software lifecycle contains software engineering tasks and documentation necessary to support the software validation effort. The software validation process is executed through the use of pre-approved procedures that also include documented acceptance criteria. The selection of validation activities, tasks, and work items should be proportionate to the complexity of the software design and the risk associated with the use of the software for the specified intended use. Requirements development includes the identification, analysis, and documentation of information about the software device and its intended use. Software safety requirements are derived from a technical risk management process that is closely integrated with the system requirements development process. Decisions on the selection of programming languages and software build tools such as assemblers, linkers, and compilers should include consideration of the impact on subsequent quality evaluation tasks, such as availability of debugging and testing tools for the chosen language. Source code should be evaluated to verify its compliance with specified coding guidelines, and source code should also be evaluated to verify its compliance with the corresponding detailed design specification. Test plans and test cases should be created as early in the software development process as feasible. Test plans should identify the schedules, environments, resources, methodologies, cases, documentation, and reporting criteria. Prerequisite tasks must be completed before software testing begins, such as installation and code inspection. Functional software testing must be defined properly. And that brings us to the end of this module. Be sure to review all applicable procedure and form templates that Rook has related to the requirements listed in this module. When preparing documents using these templates for our clients, be sure to customize them to what the organization actually engages in for the products they make. Before moving to the next module, take the Module 4 quiz. You must score at least an 80% to pass, and the quiz can be retaken as many times as needed. Please also be sure to review the other associated software recordings on the software standard and other software detailed information.